The overhead lights in Allama Iqbal International flickered softly against the glass walls as Hania Malik sat clutching her passport like a promise. Her flight to Dubai blinked on the departure screen. On time. She had rehearsed this moment for weeks. The reunion, the soft smile of the man who had called her my desert moon, the escape from the chaos of Lahore's narrow lanes and the loneliness of her rented room. 7 months ago, he had appeared in her DMs, Sheikh Karim al-Rashid, a man whose life shimmered with wealth. His words were honeyed, old world, intoxicating. Every message he sent carried the scent of luxury, candlelit dinners, yacht sunsets, whispered verses from Arabic poetry. When he finally invited her to Dubai, promising to make her dreams come true, she said yes without hesitation. But now, as the boarding call echoed, her chest tightened. She texted her sister, "Zoya, I'm finally going. Don't worry, he's good." There was no reply. Maybe Zoya was asleep, or maybe she didn't want to argue again. Hania turned off her phone and slipped it into her purse. The plane roared into the night sky. Through the oval window, Lahore's lights dissolved into glittering dust. Hania leaned her head back, her reflection ghostly against the glass. A new life, she whispered to herself. No more struggling, no more being small. The flight attendants dimmed the cabin lights. She closed her eyes and replayed their last video call, Karim's deep, confident voice, the way he said her name as though tasting it. He'd sent her a black dress delivered to her doorstep 2 days ago with a note, "Wear this when we meet. I want to see you in it first." She had laughed at the boldness then. But now, in the dark hum of the cabin, the gesture felt strangely possessive. Hours later, when the plane began its descent, dawn had just begun to break over Dubai. The city stretched below her like a painting, gold towers, endless desert, and the ocean glittering like a blade. Her heart swelled with hope. At the arrival gate, a chauffeur waited, holding a sign, "Ms. Hania Malik." "No Karim." "He send car for you, madam," the driver said politely. His accent was thick, his eyes cautious. "Where is he?" she asked, trying to sound calm. "He waiting. Private villa, outside the city." The car glided through Dubai's glittering highways. Every skyscraper shimmered like a promise. Hania imagined their reunion. Maybe he wanted privacy from paparazzi or family eyes. Still, a part of her longed for a more ordinary welcome, a hug at the airport, laughter, flowers. An hour passed. The skyline faded, replaced by open sand and the low hum of desert wind. She frowned, glancing at the endless stretch of emptiness outside. "Are we still in Dubai?" she asked. The driver nodded but avoided her eyes. "Yes, madam." Sir. Her phone buzzed, a message from Karim. "Almost there, Habibti. I can't wait to finally hold you." The villa emerged from the sand like a mirage, sprawling, pale stone walls gleaming under the harsh sun. Ornate gates swung open, revealing manicured palms and marble fountains. The silence was thick, unnatural. Inside, a woman in a black uniform offered her juice and led her to a suite overlooking the dunes. The air smelled of incense and something metallic. Hania wandered to the balcony. Beyond the glass, the desert glowed gold and cruel. A single falcon circled high above, tracing slow, deliberate spirals. Then, a voice behind her. Deep, familiar. "You made it," Karim said. She turned, breath catching. The man was taller than she expected, dressed in crisp white, eyes dark as obsidian. His smile was perfect, practiced. He kissed her hand. "You have no idea how long I've waited for this moment." His touch was warm, but his gaze, unreadable. Something in it made her heartbeat quicken, not from affection but unease. Still, she smiled, whispering, "Neither can I." Outside, the desert wind moaned against the walls, carrying with it the faint, hollow echo of distance, a warning she didn't yet understand. The first thing Hania noticed after stepping into Karim's villa was the silence, thick, airless, as if even the walls were forbidden to breathe. The marble floors gleamed under chandeliers carved with gold, but there was something unsettling beneath the perfection. Each footstep echoed too long, too hollow. Karim's hand rested lightly on her back as he guided her through corridors that twisted like secrets. You'll get used to the quiet, he said, his accent smooth and commanding. Noise is for people who have nothing inside their heads. Hania forced a smile. I've never seen a place like this. He looked down at her, a flicker of pride passing over his face. I built it for peace. For control. They reached a grand sitting room. Velvet drapes framed windows that opened onto the desert, endless and shimmering. A tray of dates and wine waited on a table, but no one else appeared. No servants, no sound of life. Where is everyone? She asked. Dismissed for the day, he said. I wanted our first hours together to be private. The word private lingered too long. She sat, crossing her legs, pretending calm as his eyes studied her. He poured wine but didn't drink. Instead, he watched her take the first sip, eyes sharp, testing, as though the act itself was a confession. As the evening deepened, Kareem began to talk. Stories spilled like smoke, tales of royal banquets, of power, of women who didn't understand their place. His words were charming, but behind them hid something darker, a constant thread of control. When she laughed nervously at one of his arrogant remarks, his gaze hardened. You think I'm joking? He asked quietly. No, of course not, she replied quickly, her throat dry. He leaned closer, his cologne heavy and sharp. In my world, respect is survival. Disrespect is death. The sentence hung in the air. He smiled immediately after, as if erasing it. I'm only teasing, he added. But the warmth didn't return to his voice. Dinner arrived late, a silent servant placing silver trays before them. Kareem dismissed him with a gesture. I hate being watched while I eat, he muttered. The food was exquisite, yet tasteless in her mouth. Hania watched him eat in perfect rhythm, movements too precise, too measured. Occasionally, his eyes drifted to her hands, her face, her neck, not with affection, but with scrutiny. You wear the dress I sent, he said. It suits you. You have good taste, she replied. I always choose what's mine carefully. The word mine struck a cold note inside her. She looked down at her plate, suddenly desperate for distraction. Tell me about your family, she asked softly. For the first time, Kareem's face changed. The charm dissolved. He set his fork down carefully, eyes darkening. My family is irrelevant, he said. They're dead to me. Then, as if remembering himself, he forced a small smile. I only live for what I build now, my empire, my peace. Outside, wind rattled against the window. The desert seemed to breathe, vast and watchful. After dinner, he led her to a balcony overlooking the dunes. The horizon burned orange under the fading sun. Do you see that? He asked. That's what freedom looks like, empty, endless, loyal to no one. Hania shivered. It's beautiful, but lonely. He glanced at her, eyes narrowing. Loneliness is the price of power. For a moment, the mask slipped. She saw something fragile, almost broken, behind his composure, and then it was gone. As darkness fell, Kareem's tone softened again. He told her to rest, kissed her forehead, and disappeared down the corridor. Left alone, Hania stood by the balcony, watching his reflection vanish into the shadows. Somewhere deep in the villa, a door clicked shut, a sound too deliberate, too final. The silence that followed wasn't peace anymore. It was warning. Morning sunlight slipped through the velvet drapes, cutting across the marble floor in golden stripes. Hania stirred awake in the unfamiliar bed, her head heavy from restless dreams. The room smelled faintly of oud and cold metal. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until the ornate ceiling came into focus and memory returned like a weight on her chest. The villa was silent again. She reached for her phone, no signal. Just the same blank bars and the photo of her and Zoya smiling on the screen. It suddenly felt like a picture from another life. A knock interrupted her thoughts. A woman in a black uniform entered, head bowed. Sir requests you for dinner. 7 o'clock. Formal. Dinner? Hania frowned. He didn't mention breakfast or lunch. The maid didn't answer. She simply set a long red gown on the bed, silk, elegant, precise, then left without a word. Hania exhaled shakily. She had imagined romance, laughter, adventure. Not isolation, not servants who moved like ghosts. Still, she told herself, maybe he's just traditional, cautious. She clung to excuses because the alternative, fear, felt too early to accept. When evening came, the villa transformed. Candlelight flickered through the halls, casting warm shadows over the cold architecture. Soft music played somewhere distant. Hania descended the staircase slowly, the red dress whispering against marble. Karim waited at the end of the long dining table, dressed in black, his posture regal and unervingly still. "You look radiant," he said as she approached. "Like a promise kept." "Thank you," she murmured, taking her seat. The table stretched far between them, covered in silver dishes. Yet only 2 plates sat ready. He poured wine into her glass, then filled his own, but again, he didn't drink. "You're quiet," he noted. "I'm just still getting used to everything." He smiled faintly. "You'll adjust. People always do." Dinner began with silence. The clinking of forks against porcelain became almost unbearable. Hania tried to start conversation, asking about his travels, his work, his family, anything to soften the space between them. But every question seemed to strike a nerve. "Family," he repeated, eyes fixed on his plate. "They're a test God gives you, to teach betrayal." She blinked. "I didn't mean to." "No," he interrupted sharply, then leaned back. "It's good you ask. You should know the kind of man I am." He reached for a small glass vial beside his plate, twisting it absently between his fingers. "Everyone I've ever trusted has tried to own me. You understand that feeling?" Hania forced a nod, unsure how to answer. "That's why I value loyalty," he continued, his tone softening, almost affectionate. "Once someone belongs to me, I protect them. But if they cross me," he smiled thinly, "let's just say, I don't forgive easily." The words landed like stones. As he spoke, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it. A message in Arabic flashed briefly before he flipped it face down. Hania caught only a glimpse of a name, Dr. Samir. "Who's that?" she asked lightly, trying to hide her curiosity. Karim's eyes snapped up. "A business associate," he said. His voice was calm, but his hand gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean." He chuckled, but the sound was cold. "Curiosity can be dangerous, Habibti. Especially here." The conversation died. She finished her meal in silence, each bite harder to swallow. The air felt thicker now, the flicker of candles distorted in the polished glass of the windows. When dinner ended, Karim stood, walked around the table, and brushed a lock of hair from her face. "Don't wander tonight," he whispered. "Some doors in this house aren't meant to be opened." Then he turned and left, his footsteps fading down the hall. Hania sat frozen long after he disappeared. The last candle sputtered and died, leaving only her reflection in the darkened glass, a woman smiling faintly at her own unease. The house was too quiet after dinner, so quiet that Hania could hear her own pulse echoing in her ears. Karim's warning replayed in her mind like a curse. Some doors in this house aren't meant to be opened. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the red dress folded over a chair. The scent of his cologne lingered in the air, sharp, musky, suffocating. She should have felt grateful for luxury, for safety, for everything he promised. Instead, unease crawled under her skin. Midnight came. The desert wind whispered through the curtains, carrying fine grains of sand that danced in the moonlight. She couldn't sleep. Each creak of the villa sounded deliberate, like footsteps she couldn't see. Finally, she rose, slipping into her slippers, and stepped into the corridor. The marble floor was cold beneath her feet. Dim lights glowed along the walls, guiding her like ghostly candles. At first, she only meant to walk, to breathe, to shake the tension off. But as she passed each closed door, her curiosity grew heavier. There were too many rooms for one man. Too many locks. A faint hum drew her to the far end of the hall. A single door stood slightly ajar, unlike the others. It was carved with strange geometric patterns, and a cool draft slipped through the gap. "Don't wander tonight." Karim's voice echoed again in her head. But the temptation was stronger than fear. She pressed her palm against the door and pushed it open. Inside, the air was colder, sterile. The walls were lined with shelves stacked neatly with folders and photographs. A single lamp burned on a desk in the corner, casting a circle of pale light. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic. She stepped closer, heart pounding. On the wall, she noticed several framed portraits, women, smiling, all stunningly beautiful. But there was something off. Each photograph had a red mark slashed across the face, some an X, others a single line through the eyes. Her stomach twisted. On the desk lay a thick folder labeled, Confidential, Endocrine Surgery, Patient Kareem Al-Rashid. She froze. The name hit her like a slap. Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside were medical records, hormone treatment schedules, surgical notes, psychiatric evaluations. Words blurred before her eyes. Gender reconstruction, postoperative therapy, dosage adjustment, complications. The sound of a door clicking shut made her spin around. Kareem stood in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost eerily composed. Only his eyes betrayed him, glittering like obsidian under the dim light. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. Her throat tightened. I heard something. I didn't mean." He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "This room is private. Just like I told you." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't touch anything." He glanced at the open file on the desk, then back at her. A faint smile ghosted across his lips, but it wasn't kind. "Curiosity again," he murmured. "It's always curiosity that ruins everything." Her hands shook. "I was only trying to understand you." He leaned close enough for her to feel his breath. "You already understood enough when I said not to ask." The silence between them throbbed like a living thing. For a long moment he simply stared at her, his jaw clenched, his breathing slow. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, low and sharp. "You think these papers mean something?" he asked. "You think you can read a few lines and know who I am?" She didn't answer. "Go to your room," he said finally, voice like ice. "Now." She obeyed, moving past him without meeting his eyes. But as she stepped into the hallway, she glanced back. The door was already closing, his silhouette swallowed by the darkness. In her room, she locked the door, heart racing. The medical file burned in her memory. What had she really discovered? Who was the man behind the charm, the wealth, the lies? She pressed her back against the door, whispering to herself, "What are you hiding, Kareem?" Outside, the desert wind howled like a wounded animal, and somewhere deep in the villa, glass shattered. The shattered sound still echoed in Hania's head long after the villa fell silent again. She sat on the floor, back pressed to the door, her breath uneven. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but where? The desert surrounded her like a trap, and somewhere out there, beyond the walls, waited the man whose secrets she had just uncovered. When she finally gathered the courage to move, she tiptoed to the window. The dunes shimmered faintly under the moonlight, endless and cruel. Somewhere in the distance, a falcon screeched, sharp, lonely, final. A soft knock came at her door. "Hania," Kareem's voice called quietly. "Open it." Her heart jolted. "Please. We need to talk." She hesitated, fingers trembling on the handle. Running wasn't an option. She opened the door slowly. Kareem stood there, still dressed in black, his face pale, eyes hollow. For the first time, he looked less like a sheikh and more like a man stripped bare. "Come," he said. "We can't talk here." He led her down the corridor in silence, barefoot on the marble. They entered the same forbidden room, though now it looked different. The lamp brighter, the air colder. The file she'd opened earlier sat on the desk, waiting like evidence. He closed the door behind them. "Sit." She obeyed. The room felt smaller now, as though shrinking with each breath. "You've seen it," he began, his voice calm but trembling underneath. "So you might as well hear it from me." He walked to the window, staring into the desert's emptiness. "My name wasn't always Kareem," he said. "I was born Karima, the daughter of a house servant to one of Dubai's minor royals. I grew up invisible. A girl nobody wanted. A shame. Hania said nothing. The truth hit harder than she'd expected, not because of what he was, but because of the pain in his voice. When I was 16, they married me off to a man twice my age, he continued, bitterness lacing every word. He beat me, mocked me, called me a curse. I ran away. I wanted to erase her, the weak, humiliated Karima, so I found a way. He turned, eyes blazing. I paid for surgeries. I learned to speak, dress, walk like them, the men who ruled me. When I looked in the mirror, I saw power for the first time. And I swore I would never be powerless again. He paced, his tone unraveling. Every woman in those pictures, they were people who betrayed me. They promised to love me, then recoiled when they found out. As if my truth made me less than human. Hania's throat ached. You didn't have to hide from me, she whispered. If you'd just told me. He laughed sharply. Told you? So you could look at me the way they did. No, she said softly. I wouldn't. You already did, he snapped. His hands shook as he slammed the file shut. The moment you saw that paper, your eyes changed. I saw it. Kareem. Don't say my name like you pity me. The air vibrated with fury. His voice cracked, not with rage alone, but with heartbreak. You were supposed to be different. You're safe. Hania stood, trembling. I don't care what you were born as. But you're scaring me. He took a step forward. You should be scared. Because people always leave me, and I can't let that happen again. Her pulse thundered. You don't have to do this, she pleaded. Let me go. I'll forget everything. I swear. He smiled faintly, eyes glistening. You think forgetting erases the truth? His voice softened to a whisper. No, Hania. The truth always returns, just like the desert wind. He reached out, brushing her cheek with trembling fingers. If only you hadn't looked in that file. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, Kareem. His expression flickered, sorrow, rage, despair, all at once. He stepped back, pressing a hand to his forehead as if fighting himself. Leave me now, he said hoarsely. Before I change my mind. Hania didn't wait. She fled the room, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Behind her, she heard a muffled sob, or maybe it was laughter. When she reached her suite, she slammed the door and locked it, gasping for air. She clutched her phone, her fingers shaking as she opened the camera app. If I die here, she whispered, hitting record, someone has to know the truth. The recording light blinked red in the darkness. The first spark of evidence. The red light from Hania's phone camera blinked steadily in the darkness, small, fragile, alive. Her reflection trembled on the screen as she whispered into it, her voice breaking between words. My name is Hania Malik. I'm at Sheikh Kareem Al-Rashid's villa outside Dubai. If anyone finds this, please. A sound in the corridor made her stop. The handle turned. She shoved the phone beneath the pillow and froze. Hania. Kareem's voice was low, measured, but it carried something new, a hollow edge. Are you awake? She didn't answer. The handle rattled again. Don't make me break the door. Heart pounding, she grabbed her purse, slipping her passport and charger inside. The only exit was the balcony. She threw open the curtains. The desert stretched below like an ocean of ash. A single light glowed from the servants' quarters far away. If she could reach it, maybe someone would help. Behind her, the door slammed open. What are you doing? Kareem demanded. She turned, forcing a trembling smile. I just needed air. I can't sleep. He stood in the doorway, disheveled, barefoot, the buttons of his shirt undone. His expression flickered between exhaustion and fury. You're lying, he whispered. You were recording me. I wasn't. You think I don't hear the lies? I feel them. He stepped closer. She backed away until her legs hit the balcony rail. Kareem, please, she begged. I'm not your enemy. They all said that, he muttered, his voice trembling. Every woman who looked at me like I was broken. Everyone who left. His hands shook violently. For a second, he pressed his palms to his temples, whispering something she couldn't understand, fragments of prayer, of madness. Then he looked up, and the tenderness was gone. You can't leave me, he said. Hania's throat went dry. I'm not leaving. I just need space. Space. He laughed softly, a hollow, aching sound. I gave you the world. The villa, the clothes, the name, and you repay me with fear. He took another step. She darted toward the side table, snatching her phone. Stay back. Put it down, he said. I'm sending my location. Before she could unlock it, he lunged forward. The phone flew from her hand, skidding across the marble floor. She screamed, struggling as he grabbed her wrists. You don't understand what I've lost, he shouted, shaking her. Do you know what it's like to build yourself from nothing, to carve power from the bones of shame? You can still stop this, she cried. We can fix it. No one fixes me. He released her suddenly, stumbling backward, breathing hard. His eyes were wild, glistening with tears. I didn't want this, he whispered. But you keep pushing. Hania dropped to her knees, crawling toward her phone. She hit record again, the screen shaking in her trembling hand. Please, she whispered, let me go. He noticed the light, that tiny red glow, and something in him snapped. He roared, kicking the phone away. It shattered against the wall, the recording cutting off mid-breath. For a moment, there was only silence. Kareem looked at the broken pieces, then at her. The fury drained from his face, replaced by something worse, calm acceptance. You were never meant to see me, he murmured. Now you belong to the truth you wanted. He turned and left the room, locking the door behind him. Hania pressed her ear to the wood, hearing the echo of his fading footsteps, slow, deliberate, final. She didn't cry. Not yet. She gathered the phone's broken SD card, clutching it in her fist like a weapon. Somewhere in this house, there had to be another way out. Outside, the wind picked up, sweeping sand against the windows. The desert moaned like a living thing, warning her of what was coming next. The first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the curtains, turning the villa's marble floor a ghostly white. Hania sat against the wall, clutching the broken SD card wrapped in tissue. She hadn't slept. Every tick of the clock on the far wall echoed like a countdown. 7 hours since she'd first realized she was trapped. The house was silent now. No footsteps, no guards, no Kareem. Only the soft hum of air conditioning and the pulse of her heartbeat in her ears. She stood slowly, testing the door handle again, still locked. The balcony, though, was her only chance. She tied the bedsheet to the railing, double-knotted it, and glanced down. The drop was 2 stories into the sand. Doable if she landed right. As she prepared to climb, her phone, the one she thought destroyed, flickered weakly to life. The screen was shattered, but a single notification blinked. Recording saved locally. Her breath caught. The last minutes of Kareem's rage, his confession, his words, all preserved. Proof. She slipped the phone into her bra and whispered, "Not dying here. Not for him." She swung a leg over the railing just as she heard the faint click of the door unlocking. Hania. His voice was soft again. Too calm. She froze mid-motion, gripping the sheet. "Don't run," he said. "You'll hurt yourself." She didn't answer. He stepped closer, barefoot on marble, his white robe glowing in the pale dawn. "I didn't sleep either," he murmured. "I kept thinking how close I was to peace. And how easily you could take it from me." Her heart thudded. "I just want to leave, Kareem. You don't have to do this. I have to protect myself." She climbed over the edge, holding on to the bedsheet, her feet dangling over open air. "If you care at all, let me go." "I do care," he whispered, stepping closer to the balcony. "That's why I can't." He lunged forward, grabbing the sheet. For a moment, both of them hung in the tension, her body suspended between the villa and the endless desert. "Kareem, please," she screamed. His hands trembled as he held the fabric. "You saw me," he said. "You saw what no one else was supposed to see. I won't tell anyone." "You already told the camera." The sheet slipped an inch. She gasped, digging her nails into the fabric, her palms burning. Then, somewhere inside him, something shifted. He loosened his grip, not enough to let her fall, but enough to make her realize he was torn. His eyes glistened. "Why couldn't you love me as I am?" "Because love isn't fear," she cried. A silence hung between them. Then a voice interrupted, not his. "Sir." It was one of the guards running up the stairs. "The car is waiting." Kareem turned sharply, releasing the sheet. The guard froze at the sight of Hania dangling from the balcony. In that split second of chaos, Hania made her move. She kicked off the wall and let go. She landed hard in the sand, rolling to absorb the fall. Pain shot up her leg, but she was alive. She ran. Behind her, shouts erupted, men yelling in Arabic, doors slamming, engines starting. The desert stretched ahead like a burning sea, dunes shimmering under the rising sun. Her lungs screamed for air as she stumbled toward the distant outline of the road. Each step sank deep into the sand. Her foot twisted, her ankle giving way. She collapsed, gasping. From behind, the roar of Kareem's black SUV tore through the morning quiet. She crawled, dragging herself behind a dune, clutching her phone. "Please work," she whispered, pressing the power button. The cracked screen blinked. 5% battery. GPS loading. Then a single bar of signal appeared. She typed fast, "The Sheikh's villa. Al Badiyar desert. Please." Before she could send it, the rumble of tires grew louder. She looked up. The SUV had stopped 10 meters away. Kareem stepped out, his robe now streaked with sand, his eyes dead calm. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately, like a man who had already accepted what he must do. 7 hours, he said softly. "That's how long it took for you to decide to betray me." She backed away, shaking. "You don't have to." "No," he interrupted. "I do." He raised something metallic in his hand, not a gun, but the same phone she had used to record him. "You left the truth behind," he whispered. Her heart stopped as she realized. The SD card she clutched wasn't the only copy. "Please," she sobbed. "Don't." But he was already stepping closer, shadows stretching across the sand. The desert was silent again. By the time the first police drones passed overhead, the wind had already buried most of the struggle beneath sheets of sand. Hania Malik's footprints vanished like they had never existed. Kareem stood beside the SUV, breathing hard, his robe torn and dusted with grit. His hands trembled as he looked down at the stillness lying before him. He knelt beside her, brushing sand from her face, his whisper thin as smoke. "You shouldn't have made me do this." Her eyes stared open, glassy, the last trace of fear still etched on her lips. He sat back, watching the horizon flare with sunlight, and for a long moment, he looked almost peaceful. Then he took a deep breath, pulled out his phone, and pressed a single button. "It's done," he said into the receiver. On the other end, a composed female voice replied, "Understood, Your Highness. Protocol B. Just no traces." Minutes later, 2 black SUVs appeared, cutting through the dunes like shadows. 4 men in desert uniforms stepped out, silent, efficient, trained. One carried a shovel, another a canister of fuel. The leader approached him and bowed. "No witnesses?" "None," Kareem said flatly. "Make sure it stays that way." He turned away, walking toward the horizon as the men went to work. Behind him, he could hear the dull thud of metal hitting sand. The smell of burning fuel soon filled the air. He didn't look back. Inside the villa, the cleanup had already begun. Security footage was being erased, digital logs deleted, phone records rewritten. The private doctor was called to verify a fainting episode for Kareem, documenting mild trauma and dehydration, nothing more. By the time the police arrived at dawn, they found nothing suspicious. The Sheikh appeared calm, if slightly shaken, as he welcomed them in with perfect courtesy. "An accident in the dunes," he explained. "She wandered too far from the camp while I rested. I searched for her myself before calling for help." The chief investigator, an older man with weary eyes, nodded sympathetically. "The desert takes quickly, Your Highness. We'll continue searching." "Please do," Kareem replied softly, his expression carved from grief. "She was special to me." Behind him, his assistant placed a hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward the sitting area, where cameras waited to capture the image of a mourning lover. Later, as the officers left, Karim retreated to his study. He poured himself a drink, the glass trembling in his hand. On the desk lay 2 phones, Hania's broken one and his own. He unlocked hers, scrolling through the last video. The screen flickered, sound warping through static. Then her voice emerged, faint but alive. "My name is Hania Malik. I'm at Sheikh Karim al-Rashid's villa outside Dubai. If anyone finds this..." He pressed delete before she could finish. Then he opened his private cloud server and ensured every trace of her online presence had been wiped, location history, hotel check-ins, even her flight booking. Her existence was dissolving, line by line, file by file. But something lingered, that brief vibration on his wristwatch. An unsent message. He tapped the notification. The words glowed faintly across the tiny screen. "Help. Sheikh's villa. Al-Badiyar Desert. Please." His breath hitched. The message hadn't sent, but it had attempted to. Meaning somewhere, for a fraction of a second, a signal had connected. He stared at the watch, at the blinking failed to send icon, and for the first time, unease crept in. "Delete it all," he ordered his assistant. "Every log, every attempt." "Already in progress, sir," she replied. But outside, far beyond the villa, a blinking red light on a surveillance drone hovered quietly over the dunes. It had captured everything: the chase, the struggle, the body, and Karim's final words. The footage was already transmitting to a remote server, unnoticed, unstoppable. And as the Sheikh poured himself another drink, believing he had erased her from existence, the desert wind whispered her name, the first hint that the truth was not gone. It was waiting to be found. For 6 days, the Malik family received no word. The airline confirmed Hania's arrival in Dubai, the hotel confirmed her check-in, and then, nothing. Her phone went dead the following evening. Her sister, Zara Malik, knew immediately something was wrong. Zara wasn't the kind to panic. A software engineer by profession and the calmer of the 2 sisters, she believed in logic, in data, in things that could be traced. But as she replayed the last voice message Hania had sent, a cheerful, "Wish me luck, Z. He's finally invited me to his villa." Logic failed her. By the 7th day, Zara boarded a flight to Dubai. The moment she stepped off the plane, the desert air hit her like static, heavy, electric, almost accusing. She clutched the worn photo in her hand, the one where Hania's smile looked too trusting, too full of dreams. Her first stop was the hotel where her sister had stayed. The receptionist, polite but nervous, confirmed that Hania had checked out with a private car arranged by a guest of honor. No one knew who. No name, no signature, just a note on the record marked Sheikh Al. "Do you have security footage?" Zara asked. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the man stammered. "Our system was updated last week. Old footage is no longer retrievable." Zara's chest tightened. Too clean. Too perfect. Someone had made sure of it. She spent the next 2 days visiting embassies, police stations, even local hospitals. Each office gave her the same sympathetic expression, the same rehearsed answer. "The desert is vast, ma'am. Sometimes people wander and..." They didn't need to finish the sentence. But Zara refused to accept that her sister had simply vanished. On the 4th night, she sat in her small hotel room, surrounded by open files, screenshots, and phone logs she'd hacked from Hania's cloud backup. Most of it was mundane. Selfies, messages, emails. But one detail caught her attention. A corrupted video file dated the same night Hania disappeared. The metadata said it was recorded from the Sheikh's villa. Zara's pulse quickened. She tried recovering it, but the file was incomplete. Fragments of sound, a flicker of Hania's face, and one line clear enough to make her blood run cold. "My name is Hania Malik. I'm at Sheikh Karim al-Rashid's villa." The clip cut out with a static burst. Zara's hands shook. The name was familiar. A billionaire, philanthropist, royal lineage. A man so protected that even whispers about him vanished before they spread. She stared at the screen for a long time, the truth crawling through her mind. "He did something to her," she whispered. At dawn, Zara drove to the outskirts of the Al-Badir Desert, the last known location on Hania's phone GPS before the signal died. The area was sealed off by security fencing and warning signs marked private property. A guard in uniform stepped out as she approached. "This area is restricted," he said curtly. "My sister was last seen near here. I just need a moment." "No visitors." His tone turned cold. "Go back." Zara met his gaze, calm but burning. "Tell your Sheikh that the truth doesn't stay buried forever." As she turned to leave, she noticed something glinting in the sand near the fence, a small black fragment, half buried. She knelt, brushing it clean. It was a shattered piece of plastic, curved and cracked. When she held it up to the light, faint letters became visible. DJI Phantom, property of Desert Surveillance Division. A drone part. Her heartbeat quickened. If a drone had been flying that night, it might have seen everything. Zara slipped the fragment into her pocket, her determination hardening. She knew what she had to do next. Find the footage before Karim erased it too. Behind her, a security camera swiveled silently toward her, recording her every move. Inside the villa, an alert appeared on a monitor. Unidentified visitor, Malik, Zara. And in another room, a hand paused over a glass of whiskey. Karim smiled faintly. So the sister finally came. The footage had been buried deep, locked behind encrypted firewalls and classified drone logs belonging to the Desert Surveillance Division. It took Zara 3 sleepless nights, a dozen VPN reroutes, and a stolen government password to find it. When the download finally completed, her laptop screen filled with a shaky image of endless dunes. The drone's timestamp matched the night Hania disappeared. The footage began quietly, just sand, silence, wind. Then, faint movement. 2 figures. Zara leaned closer. One of them was her sister, stumbling across the desert, her clothes torn, her hair wild in the wind. The second figure followed, calm, deliberate, in white robes that fluttered against the storm. Karim al-Rashid. Zara's hand trembled on the touchpad. She turned the volume up. "Please." Hania's voice, broken, desperate. "You can't leave," Karim said, tone eerily soft. "You don't have to do this." "I already have." Then the struggle. Sand flying. The camera shook as it zoomed closer, capturing flashes, Hania's scream, Karim's shadow, the moment her body went still. Silence followed. Zara covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Her sister's final moments replayed again and again until she couldn't breathe. She sat frozen for several minutes before realizing the footage wasn't over. The drone had continued recording long after Hania's body fell still. Karim knelt beside her. His face was visible now, pale under the rising sun. "You wanted the truth," he whispered, his voice low, trembling. "Here it is." He looked up, directly into the drone's lens, as if he knew it was there. "I am not a monster," he said. "I am a man punished for being born wrong. Every woman who touched me turned disgusted. Every one of them left. But she said she loved me. Until she saw what I was. And that is what killed her. Not me. Her disgust." Zara sat rigid, her pulse roaring in her ears. It wasn't just evidence. It was a confession. The screen flickered again as Karim continued, almost pleading with the sky. "You think I'm a murderer? I gave her a kingdom. I gave her myself. And when she broke it, when she looked at me like I was less than human, she chose her death." He exhaled shakily, standing, brushing sand from his robe. "You can't bury shame," he said softly, looking once more at the camera. "It always rises." Then he turned, walked to the SUV, and drove away, leaving the desert swallowing the evidence, unaware that the drone had captured it all. Zara pressed pause, her breath catching. Every second of that video was enough to destroy him. But it was also dangerous, a confession from a man powerful enough to silence entire nations. She copied the footage to an encrypted drive and sent a duplicate to a journalist she trusted in Karachi, labeling the email, "In case something happens to me." Her phone buzzed almost instantly. A known number. "You shouldn't have done that," a deep voice warned. Zara froze. "Who is this?" "You've been digging where you shouldn't." Sheikh Karim doesn't forgive. She hung up, her heart pounding. The hotel room suddenly felt smaller, the shadows heavier. Outside, a car engine idled for too long beneath her window. She peeked through the curtain, two men in suits, not speaking, not moving. Her phone buzzed again, this time, a text. Return what you stole, or your sister's death will repeat itself. Zara closed her eyes. Not this time, she whispered. She grabbed her laptop, hard drive, and passport, shoving them into a bag. The footage was more than proof now. It was her sister's voice from beyond the grave, her final cry for justice. By nightfall, Zara was on her way to the airport, determined to bring the evidence to international authorities. But as she crossed the security checkpoint, two uniformed officers stepped forward. Miss Zara Malik? Yes. You need to come with us. Her blood turned to ice. Why? There's a problem with your travel documents. As they led her away, she glanced at the departure screen, her flight to London blinking cancelled. Someone had gotten there first. And in a private office miles away, Karim watched her through a live security feed, his reflection flickering across the glass. You found my confession, he murmured, almost smiling. Now let's see if you survive it. The interrogation room was cold, sterile, and humming faintly with electricity. Zara sat under a blinding white light, her wrists trembling as two officers flipped through her passport and documents. The air smelled of dust and fear. You're being detained under suspicion of data theft, one of them said flatly. Sensitive government files linked to private property in the Al-Badiyah region were accessed from your device. Zara met his gaze. You mean drone footage that captured a murder? The younger officer shifted uncomfortably, but the older one didn't flinch. You'll remain here until further notice. He left the room without another word. Zara's pulse hammered in her throat. They weren't real police, she could see it now in their unmarked uniforms, the lack of badges. This was Karim's doing. The villa's shadow reached even here. She glanced at the mirrored wall opposite her, her reflection distorted. You can see me, can't you? She whispered. You're watching right now. In a quiet office miles away, Karim was watching. The live feed glowed on a wall of monitors. He stood before it, immaculate in a tailored black suit, his expression unreadable. Behind him, his assistant typed rapidly on a laptop, erasing every trace of Zara's digital activity. She's brave, he murmured. But bravery burns quickly in this heat. Should I dispose of her? The assistant asked quietly. Karim's eyes stayed on the screen, on the image of Zara sitting upright, refusing to bow. Not yet. I want her to understand what she destroyed. Inside the cell, the fluorescent lights flickered once, then again, a subtle pattern. Zara frowned. Then her phone vibrated, hidden inside her jacket lining. She slipped it out, shielding it from the camera. A message flashed from an unknown number. Keep calm. Don't trust anyone. We have the footage. Her heart leapt. The journalist. Her trembling fingers typed back. Where are you? The reply came instantly. Meet me at the old marina, 11 p.m. Bring nothing but yourself. Before she could respond, the door opened. The young officer entered, his expression tense. He whispered quickly, they're not police. If you want to live, go now. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who lost his sister too. He tossed her passport and phone onto the table. Back door, down the hall. Zara didn't hesitate. She slipped out silently, running through dim corridors that smelled of bleach and metal. Her heart pounded as she pushed through an exit door and stumbled into the humid night. The city glowed in the distance, its skyline a mirage of glass and gold. She pulled her hood up and kept walking, blending into the flow of workers leaving the docks. By the time she reached the old marina, the sky was bleeding orange into black. Fishing boats rocked gently on the tide. A single car idled by the pier, its headlights off. Zara Malik? A voice called. She froze. A woman stepped out, short hair, camera bag slung across her shoulder. Rania Qureshi. I got your email. And yes, I have the backup. Zara exhaled shakily. You downloaded it? Rania nodded. And streamed it to 3 international networks. If anything happens to you or me, it goes public. Relief flooded through Zara's body, but it was short-lived. Ranya's gaze darted behind her. We're not alone. Zara turned. 2 black SUVs had appeared at the end of the pier, headlights slicing through the darkness. Run! Ranya shouted. They sprinted toward the boats as gunshots shattered the night. Bullets sparked against the metal railings. Zara dove behind a crate, clutching her chest, lungs on fire. Ranya leapt into a fishing boat, starting the engine. Come on, she yelled. Zara dashed forward, feet pounding the wooden planks. The boat lurched away from the dock just as the SUVs reached the pier. Men in black opened fire, shouting orders. Zara hit the deck, heart hammering, as the marina shrank behind them, smoke rising where bullets struck fuel barrels. The horizon was ablaze with orange light. We can't go back, Ranya gasped, steering into the open sea. He'll burn the city to find us. Zara looked at the fire consuming the shore, the last illusion of safety melting away. Then let him burn, she whispered, because this time, the world will see him. But as she spoke, a red tracking light blinked faintly beneath the boat's hull, unseen, pulsing like a heartbeat.